Will Tanner, who came up with that report from Onward, is with us now in our studio in Millbank. Good morning to you, Will. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Kay.
You think that towns like this could turn blue?
Yes, absolutely. So in 1997, you'll remember that Tony Blair targeted places like, or people like Worcester Woman and Mondeo Man to win his landslide majority. And we've done the numbers, we've crunched the numbers, and we've looked at all of the statistics and people's vote intention. And we think that the key swing voter today is rather different. It's Workington Man. So this is someone who's, as you've said, over the age of 45, probably didn't go to university, more likely than not to be a man rather than a woman, and voted Leave. And if you look where those voters are most likely to be concentrated, they're likely to be situated in rugby league towns in the north and the north of England, and also some towns in the Midlands.
But do you really think a town like Wigan, where it's, you know, a majority of 16,000 could feel so strongly about Brexit that they'll vote Conservative for the first time in more than 100 years?
Well, look, it will be a monumental task to get over something like a 16,000 majority in Wigan. I mean, there's been 2 world wars since Wigan last returned a Conservative at a general election, and Workington has never returned a Conservative at a general election since 1918. So we are bucking historical trends here, but I think what you've got to understand is the scale of the Labour collapse in lots of these towns. There was a report out last night from Lisa Nandy's own think tank, Wigan MP's own think tank, which showed that Labour has collapsed from 43% to 26% in large towns like Wigan in the last 2 years. And also the extent to which Brexit is a lightning rod for voters, which might make them turn blue for the first time in generations.
And which other towns are we talking about?
So it's what we call them rugby league towns for a reason. They are places like Wigan, Workington, Dewsbury, Castleford, Warrington. There's a kind of whole suite of towns, often those that were kind of founding members of the rugby league when it was set up, that for the first time might go from Labour to Conservative. But they have Labour running through their veins. So Boris Johnson needs to do something quite different from the kind of old Conservative message if he's going to win in some of these places.
Yeah, indeed. So what might that involve, do you think? As you said, we've talked a bit about Brexit. Obviously, the health service, immigration is another big issue in towns like this.
Yes, absolutely. We've argued that essentially Boris needs to offer a very different type of conservatism from kind of economic liberalism. He needs to embrace what we call the politics of belonging. He needs to talk about the importance of communities. That includes talking about immigration and making sure that communities are integrated rather than divided. And he needs to talk about investing in the things that people gain protection and security from. So public services like the NHS, schools. He needs to talk about tackling crime because crime has shot up in terms of the public consciousness and is a main priority for lots of voters, including people in Wigan and Workington and elsewhere. And he needs to essentially offer people protection rather than freedom. We think that essentially voters are wanting something very different from what they were wanting under the likes of Tony Blair or David Cameron. The kind of kaleidoscope has changed, and voters want a different type of politics today.
Okay, it's great to talk. If you were a betting man, would you say that Wigan would go blue?
I think it will be tight. I think Lisa Nandy is actually a fantastic MP, so it will be difficult for the Conservatives to break through in Wigan, but I would put money on Workington potentially going blue.